In case you missed it, today, Friday the 23rd of April, is St. George's Day. St. George, the patron saint of the Scouts, of soldiers, of Ethiopia, Georgia, Portugal, Brazil, and little old England, amongst others, is a rather enigmatic saint. So much of his life is unknown, and in my research efforts I've discovered that there are as many myths about him as there are solid facts. In fact, there are more myths about him than solid facts. Most agree that there was certainly a real St. George, and that he died as a martyr during the persecution of Christians under the Emperor Diocletian on the 23rd of April, 303. But that's pretty much all that everybody seems to agree on. He was mentioned by St. Jerome, by St. Gregory, and even the Venerable Bede, but reports of his origins are legion. Some suggest he was a Roman soldier who converted to the faith, others that he heralded from Turkey, others still that he came from Armorica, what we now call Brittany, and others still that he was a Syrian, that he ministered in Kerala in India, and most famously that he defeated the dragon of Cyllene, which is in what is now Libya. I think it's safe to say that nobody really knows all that much about the real St. George. It might surprise you, however, to learn that in our reading in church today we will hear about another famous dragon slayer, the Archangel Michael. In our reading from the book of Revelation, Michael and his angels were engaged in a war in heaven against the dragon and his angels. Michael emerged victorious, and the dragon, alongside his defeated angels, was thrown down to earth. The dragon is named the deceiver of the whole world, and labelled as the devil and Satan. Now, I know I do stand the risk of upsetting those who might look to interpret Holy Scripture literally, but I don't think this passage, and in fact much of the book of Revelation, is one that readily lends itself to a literal interpretation. I think I'm on safe ground when I suggest that we should read this allegorically, recognising the symbolism and imagery being portrayed as revealing a deeper truth and story. The author does make it quite easy for us to move away from the literal reading to the more imaginative and possibly even romantic vision of Michael, and by parallel, St. George being engaged in the traditional battle of good over evil. It's a motif as old as time itself, and it recurs in popular culture time and time again. Star Wars, the Alien series, the Matrix trilogy, the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, the Tales of Narnia, Romeo and Juliet, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and many, many, many other works of all forms and from all times revolve around this key theme. That essential battle of good over evil, the path of light over the path of darkness, is what we honour and remember when we celebrate St. George's Day. And as we remember his medieval portrayal perhaps of valour and splendour on his white charger defeating his dragon, it's natural to reminisce on how he became the patron saint of England, that this vision of a brave soldier going into battle, fighting the good fight against the forces of darkness, is something that would give cheer and build the resolve of those called to their own battles in their time and in their place, however misguided they might have been. As Shakespeare put it in that pre-battle rallying cry in Henry V, "Once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more! Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry, God for Harry, England, and St. George." It's rousing stuff, and for the secular world around us, that might be enough. But for us Christians, it's not. It's not enough because we are people who believe the real power to overcome evil comes not from within, but from without. It comes from Jesus in the story of his life, death and resurrection, and how we share in that story today. And if one of the myths of St. George is true, he also knew this, and on refusing to recant his belief in the evil, conquering power of the risen Christ, was martyred for doing so. And so whilst we might romanticize St. George, let us always come back to why we remember him, his example of maintaining faith under persecution, his trust in the Lord, and Jesus' saving power. And let that be our inspiration as we remember him today.